You're doing a great job, Ian.
Hey, thanks, Doug. That's why I was just looking for the ego boost from you. I
No
appreciate
problem.
it. Yeah.
That's what I'm here for.
All right. I think we've reached critical mass. So I'm going to take the screen down. Officially welcome everybody and say that we are opening the Downtown Worcester Square Management Team on Tuesday, July 20th, 2021 at 6 p.m. for the recording. Thanks for everybody for being here. As you just saw, we have a pretty packed agenda tonight, a lot of development that will pack into the back half of the meeting, so please stick around and hear that. We'll try to run through some quick reports from the Police Department, Civilian Review Board. We're going to introduce our new neighborhood specialist, who I should poke, make sure he gets on the call. And then we're going to try to take a bit of a new angle this evening where before we have our community development reports and projects, I want to have a quick open forum where people can talk about issues issues that they see in the neighborhood, things that they want to see improve. I'd really try to limit those to 2 minutes because we don't want to go on too long. And because I think otherwise, right now, this meeting's ending about 7:45, and so that's a long night. So if you have anything, feel free to hop in then. So with that said, Lieutenant Marr, you want to lead us off?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So some of the crime trends we've seen over the past month have been larcenies from motor vehicles. The common trend with that is that they're all open doors with very expensive items being left in them. In two of these cases, over $3,000 laptops were left in plain view and the doors were unlocked. These are very difficult to stop, crimes of opportunity, as well as to make arrests, because most of these are happening in areas that don't have video surveillance. So continue to remind yourselves and your neighbors to please do not leave expensive items within your cars, because it is something that we've seen an increase. There were 13 over the last month. We did have a few stabbings in the district, including one today on Chapel Street, Chapel near Orange Street. Officers arrived on scene and found a person suffering from a non-life-threatening stab wound. He was transported to the hospital, and that investigation is ongoing. We're following up with our detective bureau tomorrow to see what type of evidentiary things they were able to get there. We had 2 additional stabbings on Church Street over the last several weeks. One resulted in arrest. The property owner at 55 Church had installed a good camera system around that area over the past year, and that was able to provide us with the footage there that led to the identification and arrest of the perpetrator there, which was good. There was one additional felonious assault there that we're still investigating. Over the weekend, additionally, we did have our first robbery with a firearm of the year on Crown Street. The victim there reported that a person known to him did brandish a firearm and did steal some items from him. So our detective bureau is working on coming up with the positive identification of that perpetrator, and hopefully an arrest warrant is forthcoming on that. On a positive note, we have seen a 33% reduction year to date in violent crime in the district. Last year, as we spoke, we did see a big increase in robberies, which is not typical. And this was our first robbery with firearm year to date, compared to 5 from last year during the same time period. We've only had 4 strong arm robberies in the district so far this year, compared to 14 of last year. So a 71% decrease in strong arm robberies and 100% increase, not including the one we had today, of robberies of firearms. So, a lot of factors can be contributed. People are back on the street, so there's witnesses to crime, which is helping reduce crime. Our bicycle officers are back on the street as well. So I think a combination of all these things, we're seeing some leveling out of that crime and reduction in the crime that we had last year. Other than that, we're keeping our bicycle units going. I really believe strongly in them. They're throughout the district, and we'll continue that. And I'll open up to any questions or concerns from the floor.
If I could put you on the spot really quickly to talk about some of the stuff that you've been I know you went away to go to look at a crime suppression through environmental design thing, which I think is really interesting and something that our neighborhood could both support and potentially be more involved in.
Yeah, sure. So I've been a practitioner of SEPTED, crime prevention through environmental design, for quite some time. It's something I've spoken about numerous times at this group. The chief sent me to a class down in Greenville, South Carolina, with the National Institute of Crime Prevention, and so to get some formal training. So I'm now certified in that, and I plan on continuing my education in that. So that is in designing an area or environment in which naturally reduces crime. Where it gets into the mindset of a person potentially committing a crime before they commit that act. So I think it's right in line with the policing strategy here, especially for low-level crime. Most of our low-level crime, handcuffs is not the long-term solution. And if we can use our resources from the police department and public and private sector to create an environment which doesn't necessarily have those contacts and reduces the crime, I think that's a great step in the right direction. Unfortunately, New England is a little behind the times with this. A lot of the rest of the country, it's embedded in city government, it's embedded in state legislature and within police department. So I'm hoping that we can get this ball rolling and kind of use some of these principles to make New Haven a safer place.
Yeah, I think thanks for that. And as when I think about new development and stuff, if there's ways that you see development projects come through that we could, hey, that corner needs more light, or that corner needs a place for people to hang out at night, or I know that something you've said a lot of is like, if more people are walking their dogs, then that's more eyes on the streets, and that's a better thing. And I just want to.
Yeah, I totally agree. There are conversations at the city hall side of things we can look into, make recommendations and things like that. So it's definitely something taking place, as we speak.
Thank you. And I see Miriam with a question.
I've spoken to Lieutenant Marr about it, but what's what's the latest with the noise, the clubbing, the dirt biking, the loud motorcycles, all of that?
Yeah, so here I know we spoke several times, and we do have the noise enforcement going on. Officers have been going out with the decibel reader in hours in which they're able to, because now the COVID restrictions have lightened up and the bars are getting busier. We were going from 2 officers. The chief has approved 4 officers. Due to personnel shortages, we're not always able to fill that. 4 officers for the bar detail going into the later hours. However, I've been personally begging officers to stay, and happy to say this past weekend we did have 4 officers every night. It does require it. There have been several fights and large-scale fights where 30, 40, 50 people are in the middle of the street and blocking traffic. And we've had made some arrests this past weekend. So we will continue to do that and try to maintain a peaceful environment for downtown and have everyone come down and enjoy what downtown has to offer. In terms of the motorcycles and the loud dirt bikes, we did pass some city ordinances about the dirt bikes this past year with the gasoline point of sale, as well as it making it easier for us to seize these illegal dirt bikes when they're engaging recklessly on our roadways. Our detective bureau has done some really good work, our intel unit, on seizing some of these dirt bikes. Obviously, they're still out there, but we also have to monitor and evaluate whether us engaging in these pursuits endangers the public greater than the dirt bikes themselves. So it is a complicated issue, and we are trying to remedy the quality of life issue with these dirt bikes while keeping public safety as a paramount, as a number one.
Another issue when you call the noise complaint, sometimes they say, well, send an officer when they can. You don't feel very reassured. Like, you think to yourself, how many other calls are there at like 1:30 in the morning that they're not able to come, and you feel like, okay, is anybody going to come? And you don't, you know what I mean? You don't feel.
No, I totally understand that. On the overnight hours, we have 2 cars per district. So downtown has 2 radio cars. And surprisingly, at 1:30 at night, there is a high volume of calls. And as much as the quality of life issue like noise complaints is a priority, we try to get officers there as quickly as possible. Sometimes the level of violence that we've seen this year officers are really tied up on crime scenes that have involved shootings and homicides. The bar detail, specifically around the restaurant area, is able to address those noise complaints, and they can get dispatched to that. So our commitment to the quality of life complaints are still there. We're not walking away from that at all, and we're just trying to strategize better on how we can address them appropriately.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Miriam. Anybody else? Questions for our PD? Seeing none. Thank you so much, Sean. Lieutenant Mark. Steve Ham is often here to give the report on the CRB, and he and I touched base ahead of time. He's on vacation on a sailboat. Lucky him. Don't we all wish we were there? But he did send it along, so I will read it here. It's pretty helpful. So this is from Steve, not me. Last month, the CRB met for the first time in person at 200 Orange Street. About 1/3 of the members were in the room and 2/3 were on Zoom, creating no end of communication difficulties. We had reviewed documentation individually concerning 8 closed cases. We decided to impanel a group to do a detailed review of one of them, a complaint made in May by Rosemary Albino, who complained of harassment by police after they knocked on her door 3 times in one night, talking to her and family members about a call for service that they had received. On the subcommittee reviewing the case will be board members Jenkins, Wingate, Johnson, Rivera Berrios, and Avshalom Smith. We decided that if a complainant asks for us to do a detailed review of a closed IA case, we will do it, and if 5 members of the board ask for a subcommittee to be set up to do a detailed review of a case that has been resolved by IA, we will do it. We also agreed that members of the board will take an online course in implicit bias, so we can recognize it in ourselves and others. At a future meeting, we'll have a representative of the city's corporation, we will have a representative of the city's corporation council come and explain the negotiations that are taking place to establish a new memorandum of understanding with Yale University. So unfortunately, I won't ask questions on this. I won't ask for questions because I can't answer them, but feel free to email them along and we'll pass them along to Steve when he gets back. And again, I'll put this update in the minutes. All right, so next up, I'd like to introduce our new neighborhood specialist from LCI, Arthur Natalino Jr. Arthur?
Thank you, Ann. Good evening, everyone. I see some familiar faces, but if you don't know who I am, my name is Arthur Natalino Jr. I am the new neighborhood specialist for the district, and I know I will be replacing Carmen, who was a great specialist and is still a great specialist. Just a little brief biography of myself. I was born and raised in New Haven. I am still a current resident of New Haven. I really look forward to working in the district, and I know that there was a lot to look forward to. And if you have any questions or concerns, I'm going to put my info and email in the chat box. And I just wanted to be brief because I know that there's a lot more on the agenda. So, and I know I'm new, but like I said, if you have any questions or concerns, please give me a call or don't hesitate to contact me. And I look forward to working and building relationships in this new district.
Just to quickly pile on some platitudes there. Arthur and I took a walk around the park, got a nice conversation out of the, trying to figure out what types of things we can conquer easily and what are more long-term pictures. One of the things that I think we should all be doing more of, and it's good to see eyes on it, is on our C-Click fix. So if you see any, simple low-level issues that are like, here's some bushes growing over the street, here's a tree that's too low, here's some overgrown grass, just take that picture and snap it. One thing that I'll let you speak about the summer ambassador.
Yeah. So just like what he said, I'm a big advocate for C-Click Fix. I think it's very effective in addressing quality of life issues citywide. Also last week, I'm not sure if some of you know, the city of New Haven started the ambassador program. It was planned to be a 6-week program, and it's citywide, all districts. It's a bunch of students. They're looking to do all types of activities, down from LCI, DPW, the fire department, parks, etc. So looking to do a lot of neighborhood cleanups. And for instance, another example is the fire department's having some of the students paint fire hydrants. It's a really good cause, and it will be remaining for another 5 weeks till the end of the summer. So I will be collaborating with some of the supervisors, and we will definitely be working on more beautification projects in the coming weeks.
Thank you. On that, just so the Downtown Worcester Square Management Team Executive Board has set up their own SeeClickFix account that just says Downtown Worcester Square Management Team. So if anybody in the neighborhood doesn't have the app or doesn't want to log onto it and have your phone filled with notifications all day, all night, just email me, email anyone on the team, email DWSCMT@gmail.com, and we'll go ahead and put that in for you. Any questions there? Happy to take them offline as well. All right, while I hunt for my email from Alder Sabin about his updates, because Alder Sabin, I believe, also can't be with us tonight, I will pass along to, do I see Alder Rodriguez in the room? I don't. Alder Roth.
Hi, thank you. And I'm glad to be able to be here. I often have public safety at this time and so can't. And welcome to Arthur. I'm not sure what you go by. I also just want to thank Lieutenant Marr for the initiative he's taken with kind of studying how to use, how to change space to deter crime. I think that's so important. So I really appreciate the time and effort he's putting into that. A few updates. Taxes are due. They technically, sort of the bill was due July 1st, but you have until August 2nd to pay your taxes. So just a reminder that that date is approaching. The American Rescue Plan, the city, as you probably remember, has held a couple of forums to hear from people about their ideas for how to spend that money. And there's 2 more coming up. One is on August 3rd at the Wilson Library. The final one for the summer is unfortunately at the same time as this meeting, August 17th at the Schubert. But I just wanted to mention those 2 dates. A few things about the green. I think it's great that it's a little anxiety producing to see the COVID numbers creeping up some. And so I am glad that the city's being so proactive with trying to make vaccines available on the green. Every day through the end of August. They're available from noon until 6. So if you know of anyone who needs to get one, you can steer them there. Also on the farmers market has started up on the green on Wednesdays from 11 to 2 through October. And so that's a great opportunity to support local businesses and local farmers and get good food. And also Trinity Church is starting up again, cleaning the green. So anyone who's interested in doing that, it's great of them to organize that. They're going to do it the last Saturday of every month. So that's this Saturday at 10 a.m. And they said if it rains, they will not do it. But I just wanted to mention those things. The primary is coming up before too long on September 14th. And so just a couple notes of that. If only Democrats can vote, and if you are either unregistered or registered as unaffiliated, you have until the 9th of September to register online or by mail if you want to vote in it. And you have by the 13th of September at noon if you went in person to 200 Orange Street. If you're a member of another party like Green Party or Republican or Independent with a capital I, it's actually past the deadline when you can switch to register. There is no election day registration for the primary. There is for the general election, but not for the primary. And the City Services and Environmental Policy Committee had one hearing on sort of process around the elections last month. There were still a lot of unknowns, like will absentee ballots be like last time, that it's no excuse absentee ballots? They didn't have an answer yet. And kind of how will they structure it from a covert perspective in terms of people voting. So there's going to be another hearing before that committee on August 16th. So hopefully by then we can get some more information. And just a couple more things. One, next week on Wednesday, the City Plan Commission is having a special hearing on 2 big zoning items. One on accessory dwelling units, which I think at this point they're just sort of going to be deliberating. They've already had a couple of hearings on that, and the other on exclusionary kind of zoning, they have different zones throughout the city. There sort of be downtown would fall into a category, and kind of the amount of affordable housing would vary. And so that is, there will be public testimony so that if people are interested, and then at some point soon thereafter, it will go before the Alder Legislation Committee. And finally, I just want to mention something that actually is in the non-downtown part of my ward. LEAP is coordinating with the Bradley Street Bike Co-op to try to get, they need 18, they said, gently used bicycles that would be appropriate for 11 to 12-year-olds, because the kids are going to go to the bike co-op and sort of learn bike safety skills and how to fix up bikes. And so if anyone has such a bike that they want to donate, you can either bring it to LEAP's headquarters at 31 Jefferson Street, or someone can even go and pick it up for you. So I can pass on the contact information for who can pick it up if anyone does have a bike that they want to donate. So those were some updates, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much, Alder Roth. Any questions for Alder Roth? Seeing none. I found my email from Alder Sabin, so I'll jump back in and say that Alder Roth covered most of it. But the one spicy update for those downtown is the sinkhole. You may have noticed our new fun resident of town, the giant sinkhole on College Street. It's pretty fun. You should come check it out. Turns out the tons of water and rain that we got last week blew a hole in a sewer pipe underneath College Street between College and Elm, and it was coming out through a pin-sized hole in the street. And it's right outside my office. They've been digging here for days, and they keep on finding a bigger hole. So right now there's about a 40 by 50 foot hole in the ground that was about 20 feet deep. It was a void, and it was just the roadway. It was the concrete roadbed that was holding it up. So really surprising stuff there. It reminds you that infrastructure is important and we should spend more money on it because we all need it to live. And other than that, I'll just second the thing about the farmers market and say that I put the flyer in the drive, and I just dropped the link to the drive in the chat. Alder Kubo.
Thanks, Ian. I am gonna reiterate how thorough my colleague from Ward 7 has been tonight on her updates. She's covered what I was going to say, except for I have an event announcement that everyone is invited to come this Saturday at 1 o'clock in Worcester Square for Edie Fishman's 100th birthday. Edie turns 100 on the 22nd, but we're going to be celebrating her life with us on Saturday. There will be food and cake, and I'm sure lots of singing and stories. Fun will be had by all, and I hope you all can make it. Thanks so much. That's I'm also going to drop all of my info in the chat, contact info. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Alder. Any questions? I'll take questions about the sinkhole too, if anybody's into that. No? Seeing none? The party's gonna be a blast. The food's gonna be great. Alder Yvette Hamilton is helping coordinate the food, and she puts out quite a spread, so just come on by. All right, Miriam, I see your hand.
I think the vaccine thing on the green is great versus doing it in the Taft or the Schubert. I think it's more visibility. It's great that it's every day, so not like you miss one day and then you're stuck. I know they're doing it in the drugstores, but I think the visibility there and having it every day is unparalleled. I think, you know what I mean? So I support, even though I'm vaccinated, if I have to send somebody, I can send them there, because also they have the Johnson & Johnson, which is harder and harder to come by these days.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'll lift that up. I think it's just across the city, you've seen a really significant increase in the amount of vaccination sites, which probably means that there's a lot of supply, which probably means that not everybody's getting vaccinated right now. So if you know somebody that you think you might be able to convince them to do it, see if you can have a good conversation with them. And if they have any questions, I know that there's Dr. Andy Orifici from Yale New Haven has offered to come to this meeting to answer any questions about the vaccine or on the science behind it or on the safety of it, so you don't have to listen to me who knows nothing about medicine. You talk to someone who went to school for it. All right, this will move us into our open forum. Good news, everybody, we are 20 minutes ahead of schedule. So, two things on the agenda, or sorry, just one thing on the agenda, and then I moved on to August, so I'll cut that. Olivia Martinson from the Friends of the Playground, I'm sorry. I did this last time too, I blanked. Kensington Square Playground is here. Is Olivia here? No? All right, well that was easy. Anybody else? Open forum. Tony, there you go.
A little announcement. There's going to be a rally 4:30 Thursday afternoon next to the district courthouse. I think it's 141 Church Street. It's right in the middle of the green on Church Street there, across from the green, in support of the people of Cuba in their fight against the sanctions imposed on them by the US government and their inability to, for instance, their inability to get syringes so they can vaccinate their own population. So we urge everybody to sort of stand up for humanity and come out and give some support. These rallies are happening across the country right now, especially in response to the false rallies put up by the sort of imperialist crowd who think that somehow the people in Cuba are against their own government, which they aren't. What they're against is the poverty and imposed poverty and lack of supplies that is a result of a 60-year embargo on the island, one of which is syringes. They can't get syringes because of the sanctions. So they're having difficulty using their own vaccines that they made themselves. Without the syringes, they can't follow through and work on the health of their own citizens. So 4:30 Thursday afternoon, please come and show some support and gain some new knowledge. There'll be some speakers and it's a worthwhile effort. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. So yeah, I think this is kind of the time that we want to recreate in Zoom. Hopefully this is the last meeting we have to do it in. Let me talk on that in a second. The passing around of flyers and leaflets and pamphlets and that kind of stuff, which is just, I think, incredibly important part of our group and our society. So on the Zoom thing, I'm going to launch a poll as soon as the Safe Streets for All Coalition is done talking. I want to know if people would be interested in meeting in person, outdoors in August. The Ward 8 Ward Committee met under the underpass on the old, what is that school? It's the building next to Conte School, right on the corner of, or right on Worcester Place on Worcester Square Park, onto that big overpass. So there's a little bit of rain protection. It's fairly quiet. We could bring some sound reinforcement if we need it. I'll bring chairs for hopefully enough people.
You mean the underpass for 91?
No, it's a, I guess you call it an awning almost. It's an underpass.
New Light School.
Oh.
New Light School. Thank you, Mona. It's where New Light School used to be, and then the Board of Ed was using it for some storage, and it goes in between the playground and Conte School. You know what? I'll send out an email, and I'll do the poll over an email, so y'all can spend some time to really consider that. But we are trying to figure out how to get back together. So I'm happy to take any sort of commentary or questions on why that's a good idea or a bad idea. Miriam.
I don't like the outdoor thing. I know it sounds great, but I'm worried because if someone has to use the restroom, there isn't one. So I don't like that unless there's like restroom access readily available.
No, I do appreciate that. I think hopefully I would talk to some of our neighbors over there and see if we can't get a restroom open either at the funeral home or even in the school itself. We might be able to have the custodian open the building there. But that's a great point. Thank you. Alder Kubo?
Thanks again. I realized, and thanks to Elsie Chapman for the reminder, wanted to make an announcement about July 28th at 6 o'clock. The Worcester Square Monument Committee will meet and have a public meeting where Lucy Gilman just did a really excellent article in the arts paper about the 6 proposals that are before the committee presently. I believe that the subcommittee will be meeting on the 21st. She narrowed that down to 3. And so there will be 3 proposals in front of the public. This will be a public meeting. There will be opportunity for public comment on these proposals. And I recommend everyone come and participate.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Oh, okay, seeing none. Emily?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. I am here with the Department of Transportation, Traffic and Parking with a little update on the Safe Routes for All plan. We are really excited, and I actually have our consultant here to give a little quick presentation on where we're at. I also want to plug C-Click Fix because that is a really big part of the feedback that we're getting. And I will let her take it away. Dana?
Hey everybody, my name is Dana. Thank you for having me. I'm just going to very quickly run through some slides for everybody to give an introduction about what the Safe Routes for All citywide master plan is if you haven't heard of it, and then just kind of where we're going over the next couple of months. So like Emily said, my name is Dana. I am the project manager for the Safe Routes for All citywide active transportation plan. Kind of a mouthful. I work with Mike Leiden. We are a part of a firm called Street Plans. We're transportation planners and urban designers, and we've actually been working on the Safe Routes for All plan and doing some other work in New Haven since about 2017. So our bread and butter is really, active transportation plans. And when we say active transportation, we mean, anything people powered. So that's primarily biking and walking, but transit is also a part of this master plan as well. And this is just an example of, some other plans that we have done. We work all over the country, Miami Beach, Burlington, more recently in Jersey City. And so what is the Safe Routes for All citywide plan? Really what we are doing with this plan is creating a blueprint for improving bicycle, walking and transit infrastructure citywide throughout New Haven. And what makes this plan really special and important is that it's actually going to be put up for adoption by the Board of Alders, so that the plan will, actually serve as a blueprint for implementation of this infrastructure, meaning the city can acquire funding for these projects, design specific segments of priority projects that were identified in the plan. So it's really meant to be, sort of a foundation for implementation of all of these different types of projects. And, some examples of active transportation projects, of course, are bike lanes, both bike and pedestrian intersection treatments to increase safety at intersections, like curb extensions and bike boxes. Traffic calming in neighborhood greenways is also a part of what we're looking at. And then, of course, bicycle and pedestrian access to transit as well. And so this is just, an example of some of the work that we did in 2017, actually, for downtown specifically. This plan is covering the entire city. But, what you might see or expect to see in this plan is a lot of maps. And then also we'll be detailing some, proposed projects for certain intersections and corridors as well. An idea of the project timeline. So we actually started this effort back in January. And so, here we are now in July. We are actually currently working on the draft plan, which we will have ready for public feedback and comment at the end of September. That is when our workshop will be. So that's a really important moment in time for public feedback and for everyone to actually be able to respond to something, to respond to things that we put on paper. So after that sort of unveiling of the draft plan in September, we will still be taking public comment for about a month to 6 weeks, finalizing the plan again in November, hopefully with a presentation of the final plan to the Board of Alders by the end of the year. And then how these plans typically work is that following adoption, that's when the city can pursue and allocate funding for certain projects identified in the plan and move to design individual segments. And then often these projects get implemented with the repaving schedule, new development, or with specific resources allocated to the specific projects. So just a summary of what we have done so far. We had a public workshop, both in Spanish and in English, back at the end of March. In the meantime, like Emily mentioned, we have the Safe Routes for All See-Click Fix link, which we have gotten a lot of really great feedback on problematic corridors, problematic intersections. And we also went out into the community to do handlebar and walkabout surveys. So essentially biking and walking surveys where we surveyed existing conditions for biking and walking on predetermined routes. So in total, we surveyed 29 different streets throughout the city across 13 neighborhoods. We covered many miles and engaged quite a lot of community members in this effort. These were, over multiple dates in multiple neighborhoods. These are just some images of those surveys. And we really appreciated everybody coming out, everyone who came out. We got a lot of really good feedback. And then, most importantly, it was just really obvious that a lot of people believe in the potential of New Haven to be a really, a world-class bike city, for example, and a lot of people just coming out that really care about how they can move around safely without a car in the city, which was very encouraging. We took that information and we essentially scored, all of the different routes with the surveys that people filled out along the rides. Which basically is just helping us kind of narrow down the most problematic and sort of priority projects that might come out of the plan. This is what we covered. This is just a map of the routes. So we, can, I think, hit multiple sort of parts or sections of the city. Obviously, you see there that there were some gaps that we did have routes planned, but we didn't actually have any community participation, unfortunately, but we as a consultant team still touched on all of those areas that we had planned to bike and walk. So like I mentioned, the plan has 3 major components: bicycle, pedestrian, and transit. Something that is really helping us frame the pedestrian part of the plan is an intersection database that we worked on, where we went in and we cataloged the condition of every intersection in the city for things like sidewalks leading up to the intersections, the presence of and condition of crosswalks, the presence of pedestrian crossing signals at signalized intersections. And basically this intersection database is really going to help us narrow in on which neighborhoods primarily are in need of improved sidewalks, new crosswalks, and things like that. So this is just an example of some of the mapping that we've been doing according to that database for poor sidewalks, and then similarly for lack of crosswalks in these neighborhoods. So we're going to be using these maps in the database to even further narrow down where these sorts of investments should be prioritized across the city. Secondarily, the bikeway network. So we have been working on the draft bike plan.
Mickey, I just phoned in. I'm not going to.
This is just, basically the goal of the bikeway network is to really enhance the percentage of the city's total street network that contains dedicated bicycle infrastructure. So that's more than just sharrows and shared lane markings. That's bike lanes and separated bike lanes. So, with the bikeway network, we kind of have a bunch of different factors that we consider in expanding and augmenting the network, but obviously first and foremost is filling in the gaps of the network. So we first and foremost identified, neighborhoods that are very deficient in on-street infrastructure, identified the most obvious gaps in the existing bikeway network, was where we started to augment the network. Also overlapping the existing and proposed network with safety. So these are the worst intersections for both bicycle and pedestrian safety in the city, as well as the worst corridors for bicycle and pedestrian safety. So these are obviously focuses for us, both with the bikeway network and with pedestrian improvements. Like I had mentioned before, we did community surveys. These show the additional routes that we had predetermined that we didn't get participation for, but we as a consultant team, got on our bikes and on our feet. So obviously that on the ground experience of all of these corridors and intersections has been very informative for us as we draft the plan. And then obviously connecting to transit. So we are looking at primarily how to improve not just the experience of riding CT transit in the city, but also how people can get there who don't have a car. So we will be layering, the pedestrian improvements, for example, over the transit layer to see where we can prioritize those improvements to things like crosswalks at bus stops, bike lanes to get people to major transit routes, et cetera. And then finally, I think we are excited about and we acknowledge that there is a lot of movement in the direction of safe streets in the city. We have a robust advocacy sector who has been very helpful in kind of guiding our initial planning work and has really provided a good foundation for us to work off of. The city is also very actively working on complete streets projects and improvements. Also you have creative projects like temporary street closures and temporary lane repurposements, new bike infrastructure going up, as well as asphalt art. And so we're gonna, hopefully this plan is really just capitalizing on that great work that's already been done and provide that sort of blueprint and extra push to make these sorts of improvements a really regular piece of capital improvements in the city. And then finally, just a note about ways that you can engage with the plan. So like I mentioned, our second public workshop is going to be at the end of September. We are going to start promoting that very, very soon with a specific date and a venue. We also have the Safe Routes for All C-Click Fix, of course. We have been downloading data from that regularly as we work on the plan. And then we also have on the website, saferoutesforall.com, we do have do-it-yourself handlebar and walkabout survey sheets that if you have an area that you don't think was covered, even if it was covered and you want to do it yourself and grab some neighbors or do it with everyone who's here on this CMT call, we welcome you to download those and then you can send them to us and I can put my email in the chat if you have any questions, of course, about any of this, or if you do end up doing your own survey. So that is the Safe Routes for All plan in as quickly and condensed a time as I could do it.
And well done.
Yeah.
That was speedy. That was a lot of information quickly. Anybody who's able to digest all of that, have any really good questions about it, or maybe pieces that you didn't digest and need a little explanation on? We have a little bit more time than I had expected.
I'd like to make some comments related to it. I saw in some of the red highlighted part that encouraging people not to run lights. The biggest problem in my view in this city is that people are a good segment of the driving public is beginning to lose respect for the laws. That is to say, speeding and running intersections and so forth. And the only way to stop this is to begin now with a drumbeat consistently to people in the community and our legislators that we must produce speed cameras and traffic cameras because that's the only way we're going to stop this. And it's going to take years to convince the legislature to have the guts to actually do it. But if we don't get started now, we'll just be taking off more people dying over the next few years and what have you till we get to that goal, because we're beginning to lose control over our roads at this point. I don't know whether that's the end of that's the end of my sermon anyway. Maybe somebody feels differently, I don't know.
Thanks, John, for the comment there. I see a couple people piled on right there. Would Safe Streets, do you guys want to respond to that? I also see Alder Roth on the queue.
I'd like to respond.
Tony, before you're, so it's, I want to know if Safe Streets is interested, then it's Alder Roth, then Tony, you're up.
All right.
Okay, Alder Roth, I think you're up.
Thanks. And I totally agree with the comment that was just made, and just want to note that I'm very appreciative of Roland Lamar, Representative Lamar, and all his hard work this past session. And actually, some of the folks met with him. He attended the Safe Streets group meeting last week, and it was great to hear from him. And one positive thing, although there were some positive traffic safety measures that passed this past session, it was frustrating that the speed cameras were not included for near school zones and hospital zones. But something that did pass, that was not passed as part of the bill, it had been part of the bill, but did get passed in the what's called the budget implementer, the huge budget at the end of the session, was allowing speed cameras in construction zones on like the highway construction zones. And so that's something that hasn't passed for years. And so I think he sees that as sort of a very positive opening, giving some hope, and that it will give good data to like show speed cameras do make a difference in reducing fatalities and speeding. And so it wasn't what was hoped for as for folks who were pushing for broader speed cameras in our schools and hospital zones, but it was something positive. So again, I appreciate the comment that was just made.
Thank you, Alder Roth. Tony, you're up.
I'm listening to John talk. I agree with him on the whole idea of the lack of commitment to actually stopping at stoplights now. I've seen this a lot in New Haven. But it is not just automobiles. The bike population is out of hand. They do not follow any semblance of rules about being on a public road. Going through stoplights is something that they normally do all the time. That's people on bicycles. On top of that, they go down one-way streets the wrong way. They drive on sidewalks. They do a lot of things. That's always going to be a major problem until somebody stipulates that their behavior has to conform to traffic regulations. You can't just ignore that. It's a big problem. Thank you.
Agreed.
Thanks, Tony. Anybody else? I heard might be a good Dana, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I wanted to just respond, say thank you for the comments. I think we have definitely heard the piece about speeding. A lot of the feedback about specific streets is speeding and the need for traffic calming. And so we're very aware of that feedback. I will say that, so two things, I think, so our plan will definitely focus on, providing a blueprint for infrastructure improvements, and we will be detailing some specific improvements in the plan, but we do also include sections on things like enforcement, education, equity, which might be, less about specific projects and capital funding and dollars, but more about those other sort of operational or legislative solutions to kind of combine with the other strategies outlined in the plan. So that's some of these items might fall into that part of the plan as well, still as recommendations, but just not in the same form. And then second, I think, the part about the bikes on the sidewalk and bikes going the wrong way, I think maybe a solution is that with, infrastructure that we actually outline in the plan, the idea is that hopefully those types of behaviors will get less and less as bicyclists actually have infrastructure on the road that they feel actually safe riding in. And so, it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but I think that's just more reason, to, give us feedback on this plan, support it, et cetera, so that those kinds of things, so that infrastructure can be provided so that those types of behaviors are less frequent. Yeah, but I really appreciate everybody's time and for letting us present. And I put the website saferoutesforall.com. It's pretty simple. So maybe we have some other documents on the website as well. We have the presentation from the first public workshop and some other things. So if you get some free time, just feel free to peruse. And we also have the Facebook page, which is just Safe Routes for All as well. And that's where we do a lot of updates on public engagement. So that's where you will find the information about the second workshop, which will be a great opportunity for us to get your feedback.
Thank you. As someone who's
Thank you.
frequently riding around the city in a bike, sometimes with a little kid in it. It's scary out there sometimes. So watch where you're going, watch where you open your doors, check behind you as you do that. All right, our next move is to, we're gonna basically hand the rest of this meeting over to Ben Tracton and the team from Borison, talking about a ton of projects. First off, I would say, well, Attorney Tracton, I think you can.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good evening, everyone. And thank you, Ian, for getting us onto your agenda so quickly. We appreciate it. We're going to be talking about two projects, one on Grand Avenue, one on Crown Street. And we're going to start with Crown Street, which is 208-216 Crown. It's currently a commercial building in a surface parking lot. The owners are exploring a residential conversion. This is a preliminary first look at what's going to be proposed. This is Crown Street between Temple and College Street. 106 units in total are proposed. There'll be a breakdown of unit bedroom count during Ken Borison's presentation. That's basically the highlights of what we're going to be presenting, and we have some pretty pictures to show you now. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Ben. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
How do I just hit share screen or?
Yep.
My second screen. So
we have your email in the background now, just FYI.
Yeah, I'm just trying to click on the. Does that work better?
Perfect. We see just the plans now.
Okay. So thank you everybody for repeat what Ben said, getting us on so quickly. This project is at 208-216 Crown. So it's Lurico Towers. Can you see my cursor here? Here, and there's a parking lot and a small two-story building. I'm just going to take you through the plans and then elevations and a perspective. So in 216, which is now mainly commercial, they will reuse the lower level, which has got quite a high head height and some window wells for amenity space. And there'll be long-term parking that comes right off of the elevator for bikes. There's a gym downstairs as well, and some more amenity space. And the amenity space and open space requirements are all met, and bicycles. So this is Crown Street, and the driveway entrance currently is not too far from where it is shown right here. So there'll be some parking here at grade, accessible units, accessible van, loading spaces, a series of short-term bike storage is going to be under a shed roof, a dog park. And this is really an addition to this building. There's a hallway here that exists now. And so you'll be able to connect in to access those amenity spaces. The main floor here at the front, you come in and there's a package and mail room, and then there's some units on the back. In the front, there's a lobby and a vestibule, and on the other side of the driveway would be a retail store. And then the units are essentially, there are 106 units, 22 are studios, 47 are one bedrooms, 6 are one bedrooms plus den, and 31 are 2 bedrooms. And so you can see second level here, they have their own circulation. They don't cross over because the floor lines differ. Again, more units on the 3rd floor, 4th floor, 5th floor. The 6th floor has got a small area in the existing building and a full floor, and then the 7th floor. And then there is a roof deck with photovoltaics on the new building. Elevations, we made a real effort to kind of pull some of the cornice lines through. So you've got that cornice line of this building and this cornice line up on the sort of 6th floor and pull through. It's a taller 1st floor that allows vans to get in and emergency vehicles to get in with the clearances they need. Just elevations on the other sections, you know, that are not really seen by the street. And then a more current rendering shows the Lurico Tower here, again, fully restored, and the new building next to it with a drive-through. We actually pushed back the entrances so that when a car is coming out of the parking area, they can see pedestrians. And so it's safer than putting the entrance here. The unit sizes are, let's see, I have to go back to let me go that back. And this, why can't you open that? Windows cannot complete the extraction. Huh.
No.
I'm not sure what happened.
But these are these the same plans that you sent over to us?
Yeah, they're the same plans. The only difference was the rendering.
Okay.
The rendering was, the one I sent was an older rendering.
Okay, I mean, if you'd like, I could pull up the ones that I have too, if you want to try that. No, okay. Is this would replace the surface lot?
Yeah,
Or just a little squat building?
yeah. Portion of the surface lot remains for the parking that was shown.
Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pull your screen down real quick and just put up my screen of where we're talking about here, so everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So this is Lurico Towers as it stands.
Right.
Your proposal fills some.
Yeah, essentially that 2-story building comes down. The parking, entrance is not too off. Is pretty close to where it is. A little further over to the right, and then the building is set up in there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And they have parking, both surface parking and then parking that they're going to lease across the street to meet that parking requirement.
So additionally, in terms of parking, would be 16 parking spaces provided on site with the balance of what's required by lease, potentially with the parking authority at the Crown Street parking lot. This would be a zoning compliant project which wouldn't require any zoning relief in the BD zone. So this would go for a full site plan review, but potentially, if we're able to reach an agreement with the city as to parking, no zoning relief would be necessary.
Got it. Thanks. That's important info. I appreciate it. maybe something that would be good to explain a little bit more about what as of right means in all of these things.
As of right, is just complying with all of the current zoning regulations of the city of New Haven. Just because a project requires relief does not necessarily mean it's any better or worse than a project that is that doesn't require relief. That is as of right. It just skips the step of having to ask for a special exception, a special permit, or a variance, which all have different relief standards from the relevant boards that they appear or that these applications are heard by.
Thanks.
Sure.
Tony.
How many spaces would you be leasing, Ben?
I think the total parking requirement after reductions per the zoning ordinance is probably in the 80s. Ken, is that about right? So I think we'd probably need to lease somewhere in the, around 60.
No, I think it's less than that.
Oh, it's a half per.
It's 106 units, so it's 53. And then I think we got down to 46 or so based on the bicycle reduction because we're providing so many bikes. And, you know, our 47. And there are, I think, 16 on site, I believe. So
my mistake. So it's in the low 30s range. Yeah.
So what happens if there are events going on downtown and those parking spaces are no longer available to incoming traffic?
New Haven has in the zoning ordinance, it allows shared parking agreements, shared parking arrangements. So there's some creativity, and I guess residents would have to temporarily find parking elsewhere. But generally, that area of downtown has a lot of parking options.
Really?
Well,
Okay.
I mean, whenever I come downtown,
If that's what you say, I seriously doubt that, but I'll go with it for now, Ben.
Wait a second, are you taking away the Crown Street garage then where I already pay monthly parking to park? Is that what you guys are saying?
no, we're saying we would be looking to lease about 30 parking spaces within that garage, but not take your garage away.
Doug has just added to the chat that, and forgive me if I'm butchering this, Doug, I'm just gonna read it, but I don't know what it means. Residents can buy permits from the parking authority portfolio, so it's any of the places that a parking authority manages or any other market parking.
Not to comment too much, but the building is being proposed next to the Kelly House, which has 0 parking as well. And the residents have lived there for generations and they're okay.
Thanks for that. I see answers.
Yeah, I think this is a good way to approach it. My question would be, in fact, in the opposite direction, that as parking demand gets reduced in the city, I'd actually wonder with the building that you're planning, if it would be possible to build further on the lot where you're planning surface parking. In some, saving as much urban land as possible from parking is an enormous value. And it's good to use publicly owned parking to satisfy that demand rather than building more. So that aspect of the plan is in fact really important and something that I support. And I just related to that, I'm wondering how wide the driveway is, and if Crown is one way, will cars going in and out cross over each other? What I'd hope to see is that isn't how it would work, and that the driveway would be as narrow as possible. Could you describe that?
Sure, yeah, there's requirements in the zoning. That driveway is 24 feet wide, which is the minimum you can have for that aisle. And again, remember, you've got to get vans in there and loading and other things as well.
Yeah.
So So it's a 24-foot aisle. The parking spaces are 18 feet deep by 9.
I just add that in preliminary discussions about the plan for this building, there was an attempt to accommodate more parking on site with the, another level underground, which would have been cost prohibitive. So I'm glad people are recognizing that limited parking or reduced parking is the future. So, we have 16 shown. We'd love to take that down to 0, but we think 16 is a reasonable number to accommodate accessible residents and other residents who need to be close to the building.
Right.
Thanks. Anybody else have any comments on this?
This is Mona. I'm just curious as to, I'm a little confused. There's no commercial
No,
plan?
there is. If I can share my screen again if you want. I got it back up.
Okay, I got lost there.
Go
ahead, Kenneth. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is the retail. Can you see that?
So that's a separate building.
That's a separate space. It's part of the same building, but it's not connected. So it's a retail space.
So we're looking at
It'll have a bathroom in it. We don't know what's going in there at this point because there's no tenant, but that's the retail space. So that's not an amenity space for this, the residents. The residents have their lobby here and their entrance here. On this
Forgive my ignorance, but I don't understand how two buildings that are not adjacent are one property.
It's an addition. They're connected. The property line will be dissolved.
So I think what we're looking at here is we're looking at the first floor of a very large building.
Right.
Where the, looks like the left-hand portion of the building has street level parking on the first floor, which is why it looks like it might be a separate building. But imagine 5
This
stories.
is connected at the next level. If you go here, it bridges over that. The building bridges over those two spaces.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for that. Okay, anybody else? Questions on Crown Street before we move on? I see John.
I just like to observe that if that entryway passage is two-way, you could make it left-hand running on the way out. So the traffic could turn left, and left-hand running in the way in. So the traffic coming up Crown can turn in. The same problem occurs with the garage at the community college downtown. They have it reversed as well, and they're always crossing one another there. But if you change it to be left-hand drive rather than right-hand drive, it works.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I didn't even think about that, but that makes sense since Crown Street's going north this way.
Yeah, till they change it.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
That's a good idea. Why didn't I think of that? That was a great, John, I've been at the gateway. The gateway garage makes no sense. You're right. They have to put a cop out there to make sure people don't crash into anybody.
I mean, it's a learned behavior, but with enough signage and stuff, I think you would.
Let's hope.
I guess. Okay, so let me close that one. I may have to, let me see what happens here. Close current tab. Oops.
Yeah, as you flip over from that one to the next one.
Yeah, it's on the same, yeah, there it is. Okay.
There you go. So anybody have any final, before we close out downtown, which I think is the simpler of the projects you're proposing, and we move on to Crown Street. I got a quick comment. I got 2 comments in the chat, direct messages to me. One on Astris wants to make an announcement really quickly before we move on. And then I want to apologize. I sent a reminder email for this meeting at 6:30, not 5:30. So next week, next time, maybe I'll get it right. Astris, really quickly.
Yeah, thank you. Many of you know there's been a discussion about an important project at 2034 Fair Street. It hasn't come to our management team yet. There was an impromptu meeting called because they hadn't sent us information prior to last month's meeting. And we bent over backwards to meet with them just before the BZA meeting. And it's being referred to city plan for comment and review. That's tomorrow night. The project is huge. It's 186 units. It involves important aspects of transportation and street safety and how well the street grid for the downtown Worcester Square zone works. And we are asking that the city plan hearing be a public hearing, just for the importance of the issue on its own, but also because economic development really didn't handle this correctly in terms of timely outreach to the community. There's a plan to have a shared street sort of set up and actually claim it to be open space, which would be a very new thing in the city, and something that could set a precedent that doesn't work well, not only for this particular project, but many other things around the city. So if you would reach out to, I really appreciate our alder is asking for a public hearing. And if you could offer her support, that would be really good. If the commission would vote whether or not to make it a public hearing, and if they do, they'd have to renotice it, and the public hearing would happen at one of their August meetings. So that's very important news, and it's actually very, very concerning that the city has handled a giant project involving the street network in a way that really hasn't included the community. Thank you, everybody. And contact me if you have any questions or you'd like to discuss this. Thanks again.
Thank you, Astris. Two things just happened. One, Olivia Martson just joined us from Friends of Kensington Playground. Olivia, I'm going to put you back on the agenda at the very end, so you'll have to hang on for a little while. You're on mute right now, but I assume you're thanking me. And then just on what Astris just said, Kathleen Krolak from Economic Development just told me that we will have a place and we will have representatives from Epimoni at the August meeting to talk about that Fair Street development. So come back then and we'll be able to hear a lot more. City plan tomorrow night. And apologies, Ben and Kenneth, back to you for Grand Ave.
I can just keep going, Ben, if that's makes sense.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, so there's really two projects on Grand Avenue, and they're the same owner, and it's really a transformation of a very transient area to and sort of old industrial sort of buildings that get really changed and renovated, and I think to the good. It's a very exciting project in my mind. But can everybody see my screen?
No.
No, you'll have to put it back up. I pulled it down. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Can you see it now, or do I have to?
Nope. Do it again. Sorry. You'll have to hit share screen on the bottom again.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
Perfect.
Okay. So just a cover page. So essentially, this is where. Well, I'll take it back. This is where Ungers is, and there's a bunch of, non-windowed buildings here, and what we're going to do is renovate them and keep Ungers as a smaller retail space, provide kind of a leasing office, interior bike storage, and some amenity space, both downstairs and in another part. There's residential units. The 897 and 873, the total is 34 units. And there are a variety of unit types. They are 2-bedroom, they're all larger units, 2-bedroom plus den, 3-bedroom plus den, There's some one bedrooms, generally with dens, and the like. So this is a portion of that building. These are townhouses that are in here. You can see my cursor. There's a garage on the back, but there's 2 flats units, and then there's a flat unit here on the first floor. On the second floor, this is the second floor of the townhouses. This is another unit above here, and then there's 2 stories added on top of Unger's, and these are units that are like townhouses up a floor. So you come in and you go into that unit. It's 1 bedroom, living room, dining room, kitchen, and then you go up the stair, and on the next floor you have 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, sometimes a little den as well. And that's on that first portion of it. And then there's a roof deck right here. That's shared amenity space. And on the building that's adjacent to it, you see the connection here. It's kind of a match line. This is all renovated to units. You know, a 1 bedroom. This is actually a wraparound. So this is a 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, because you got a window over here. And then this would be a 1 bedroom plus den, because it's buried here below the second floor, and so forth and so on. And so we're adding a small addition right here on the 1-story piece, which is the same height as this, to get some more units and to get better light. Elevations. I think the renderings are, you know, these are elevations. The materials are, so that's, you know, it'd be good to have a picture of what it looks like now, but essentially, you know, brick-like material, some ephes, some hardy plank. So that's a street view. That's another street view. So Unger's gets, the name of the development is Unger's Living Spirits, but it's not connected to alcohol. That's the owner's thought about it. But anyway, so there's residential units above. Unger's gets new facade. And then you can see the parking area, kind of where the parking area is now. And this project is kind of combined with the one across the street, which, if I go out of this, well, let me ask if there's any questions on this.
Yes, I have a number of questions.
Okay.
I live at 102 Lion Street, so we abut Unger's, and there's it looks, I mean, I'm not an expert at reading plans, but at the moment there's a driveway from Grand Street onto into Unger's, right? And that's
yeah, that's this drive. Well, there's a driveway here from Grand into Unger's, and then there's the driveway into the bakery. It's next door.
Right. No, but I'm talking about the one from Grand Street, right? There's a, sorry, from Lion Street. There's a driveway from Lion Street that goes into.
Oh, on the backside.
Backside. And
yeah.
It looks like you're trying to build something there, which is.
No, we're not. This is
what
just
is
the
that?
garage. This is the existing garage that's there. So they're not building anything on the back.
So
Ken, can I jump in and make a couple of zoning related comments and maybe
sure.
share
You
my
have the
screen?
site plan, Ben, that
I could certainly.
or the
find-
survey. You could maybe put the survey up. That.
Yeah.
So we sorry, we just we have suddenly a bunch of people asking questions all at once, which I think is great.
To answer your question, Charles, there's no additional construction in the back
So
of that where that garage is.
right.
There's actually there's a yard behind that, right? There's a
yard. There's a part, part of a yard, and
yeah, there's some parking space
and a driveway, right?
Yes, yeah.
And so what are the plans for those?
I think that that drive will remain, and there's a few parking spaces there that will remain.
A few parking spaces say that will or won't. I mean, my concern is a simple one, which is both 100 and 102. We have a right of way because if you can imagine, the laundry, the washer dryer, and are in the basement, right? And these townhouses are 3 units, and so people on the second and third unit have to go out the front door and around the side and the back to go in and use the basement. So having that kind of access has been, I mean, it's my understanding that was built into, to whatever kind of agreement you want to say. I mean, I talked to Unger about it when I bought the place, and so I'm, it would be nice to see what these plans were, backed all the way out to
Yes,
to Grand Street then.
there will be a site plan. There'll be a site plan that shows that. There's a civil engineer on the project.
Do you have that?
And
slide? Is that in the survey?
We don't.
I can share my screen with the survey if you.
Yeah, why don't you show the survey, because the survey will show what's there and that we're not doing anything beyond what's. Do I have to stop my share, or?
I don't know what people are seeing on their screen, but hopefully it's the survey at this point.
Right.
We're seeing the same.
Okay.
Ian, do I have to stop my share?
Yes.
Seen.
Let me.
And here it is.
Yeah, no, there are 2 screens up right now. I'm gonna stop everybody's, and Ben, you just want to put yours up?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, can you see it now?
No, now, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, the site does go through here to Lion Street. And that is in the original design. First of all, the footprint of what's in the RM zone on this side of the split zone is not changing. So it's just going
Except
to
there's
be
that little bump that's coming off then at the right there.
a reduction slightly, correct?
Yeah.
But that's the part that's falling apart.
Right, so that'll come
Right.
down. The
That's
parking
coming
space,
down.
the parking spaces will be removed, so there won't be parking going out to Lion Street. And, this was designed specifically to be respectful of the residents on Lion Street, both in terms of use and scale. So just from a zoning perspective, this is slightly different than the last presentation. This is not an as of right project. This is going to require some minor typical zoning relief where a BA or business zone, as you can see right here, which is the part that fronts on Grand Avenue, abuts a residential zone like what you have on Lion Street. Because of this, the zoning line running, the zone line running kind of exactly along the rear of the buildings here, we need zoning relief to allow 0 rear yard. And these are in building wall height relief because of our proximity to the property line. All of these conditions are what are called existing conditions, not being made any worse by the construction contemplated. So from a zoning perspective, these are all commonly granted variances and that don't really pose a big threat to the neighbors along the Lion Street side. The property is not going to encroach any deeper into the Lion Street side of the development. And the bulk of the development is going to be along the closer to the Grand Avenue side.
Well, there's some other people who have questions. I'll let them raise them.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Mercer. Linda Reeder.
I would just like to encourage you guys, next time you come to a meeting, to put your proposed first floor plan on overlay it on this survey, because you will see a lot of things like there's a very narrow space at the rear of the property, especially at the one on the right, the 873 Grand Avenue property. And you have apartments opening on the ground floor into people's backyards behind their garages. And there's a 6-foot space between the buildings. So that seems, and I'd be interested to hear what Lieutenant Marr thinks about that in terms of safety. It seems less than ideal. And I was also wondering if you're planning to put any fencing up so people aren't cutting through Lion Street yards to get to their homes.
That's certainly something we can address. Fencing in a project like this is a minor additional item of expense. So I'm sure which could have a significant impact on the residential neighborhood that abuts. So that's something I could certainly ask to be included and get clarification on.
Thank you. Lynn, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'll let someone else ask questions, and if my other questions aren't answered, I'll raise my hand again.
Feel free. Raul Shah.
Hey, thanks. Hi, I'm Rahul. I'm a resident of Worcester Square. So thanks for your presentations and for your time today. I agree that New Haven needs more housing, but I'm concerned about the abundance of market rate housing and luxury condos that are being put up without simultaneous investment in low income housing options. This might be out of the scope of today's meeting, but can you comment on the percent of units being proposed today that might be dedicated for affordable housing and how that number that determines affordability might be defined?
And these are proposed as market rate housing. It's just not possible for a private developer to construct affordable housing currently without subsidies that just aren't available to market rate developers. So, we could discuss and debate the wisdom of affordable housing, but this will be developed as market rate.
Okay, fair enough. That's obviously disappointing to hear, but can you comment a bit on what the rent would look like?
The rents haven't been set. For the area, I think this is going to be somewhat of a pioneering build. I think rents would be consistent with what the rents are across the street at 850 Grand Avenue, and they're significantly below what you'd see in parts of Worcester Square and the new construction buildings along State Street and Olive.
Yeah, I mean, I just have concerns, well, I don't need to go into this right now, but I think specifically as we think about encroaching or pushing more where luxury condos are going into Grand Avenue, I have more concerns about gentrification and what sort of downstream effects that this has in our city. It'd be nice to see some private developers also invest in those communities that may need to have affordable housing options. That's all.
Thanks, Raul. And I think this is bringing me a good time to us to remind people that they're right now going through the city as an inclusionary zoning ordinance. If you make sure you turn out and show up to those meetings, both to hear what's in that proposal and how that could or could better provide housing that does not push people out of their neighborhoods, because the rent is too damn high.
I guess I would just say that these are not condos, right, Ben? This is right.
Yeah, no, this is contemplated as a rental building. These are not condos. This is not the kind of housing that generally displaces people. This is, adaptive reuse of 3 blighted structures in a corridor that, I pass through on nearly a daily basis and see, a mixture of homeless people, neighborhood people, and could certainly use some life, whether that's market rate or affordable. That's beyond my ability to control, but I think some residential use here with ground floor commercial would be an appropriate use in this area, rather than just being a corridor for travel between downtown and Fairhaven.
So I think the next portion, so are you, forgive me if I'm not reading this entirely right. So there's 873 to 897 and then 880 right in the middle of it, right?
Yeah, 880 is across the street. Do you want me to just show that quickly so we can?
Yes, please.
No.
Can we finish talking about this first project first?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I was just trying to give you the whole scope, but absolutely, I would happily.
Okay, however you want to do it.
Linda, back to you.
Mona, did you have something?
No,
okay.
go ahead.
Oh, no?
Wait, so I'm wondering about there not being any, a couple of things on the 873. You have apartments opening right onto the sidewalk with the doors swinging into the pedestrian pathway, and it's a narrow sidewalk. And also, how come you can put ground floor residential when you're required to have commercial on the ground floor under current zoning?
Well, to address the second part of your question, we'd need a special permit to allow, and a BA to allow first floor residential. That would be from the City Plan Commission. But the point was to retain some space for Ungers on the kind of westerly portion of the site.
I guess my concern is from a pedestrian perspective that you have 107 feet of parking that is dead to pedestrians, and then you have residential, which right now the windows are all smashed in that building because I don't know, I guess it's been vacant a while, but it seems like it would be better from a security perspective to have that to be commercial, and it'd also be better for the neighborhood in terms of activating the street if there was an office or something there, so that people, it's just more people getting people's attention and so on.
May I comment?
I just wanted to answer one thing here. I believe the doors that are there that open out now. It's a wider sidewalk. I don't think we swung the doors and
I think it's a problem and I don't think that building has been occupied with the doors swinging that direction. I don't think it's ever been occupied legally.
Okay, I'd have to check that out.
Yeah, there's been a long and difficult zoning history for these buildings. I know it's gone through zoning a number of times. We have a new owner and a new approach, and I know that there have been those ornate doors kind of just sitting on a dilapidated building for 4 or 5 years, but we hope to advance a project that actually has the ability to be built and to bring housing choice and some commercial use to this area, rather than see Ungers shut down and the property just sit vacant for many years.
Doesn't have to be an either or proposition.
So a comment and a question and an answer to a question. So Olivia asks in the chat, is commercial on the first floor other than Ungers? And it sounds like there is Ungers on the first floor, but also some residential, correct?
Correct.
Residential needs a special exception from the BZA?
Residential needs a special permit from the City Plan Commission in the BA zone. Again, it's relief that's typically granted without much difficulty.
So then because it's a special permit, that would be a public hearing at City Plan, correct?
Correct, yeah. So this would have zoning relief, 2 opportunities for public hearing.
Great. So I think this is a really important thing for everybody here in this meeting is, And if I can just take a moment of privilege here. As a management team, we do not have any sort of legal authority or capacity to require developers to do anything, right? It is I believe, a very good practice for folks to come out and explain what they're doing. And we just saw that happen on Crown Street. We saw a really excellent suggestion about parking flow in a way that could really alleviate, or just really help out that street. I can imagine 2 of those contra flow things being a problem. The public hearings at BZA or city plan are where all of the real hard work happens. So if you have concerns tonight, make sure you figure out when those meetings are. I think my question that I would follow this with is, when are you guys planning to submit, and when do you expect to be in front of CPC or BZA, depending on which project?
I think we plan to submit for the September hearing. There is no August hearing for BZA, and only obviously submit to city plan if we obtain approval for the relief that we need at BZA. All of the residents at to the rear of the property would be abutters who would receive a mandatory abutter notice. So I can list those addresses if, or there's a tool on the city zoning map that allows you to see who would get an abutters notice within 200 feet of the property. And in this area, given the density, it's quite a large number of people, probably over 60 properties.
I appreciate that. Would you be
Ian, may I make a comment? Because we have been through this before, and the application had been made for having strictly residential. It was turned down by the BZA. At that particular meeting, we were informed by one of the representatives of the owner that if that's the case, then they're going to let it sit vacant and be an eyesore. And so as a result of that, there was an effort. First of all, Grand Avenue had been designated a gateway corridor. In the meanwhile, it's not, it had been divided. There were, the initial proposal was that there were 3 gateway corridors to be dealt with the same way. And it turned out at the Alder meeting that that was not the case, and it was divided into 3 sections: Dixwell, Whaley, and Grand. And Grand was made, even though it was smaller, because number 1, it's a very, very narrow road. Number 2, the lot sizes for all of these commercial buildings are extremely small. Number 3, it's completely enveloped by residential all around. And I can go on, but what happened was that we had a petition. There were over 100 signatures overnight against that proposal. And so as a result of that, I met with Aisha, and we had come to an agreement that the neighbors would get together and create some guidelines for the future zoning of this area. And we did so. And I think that for us not to even have been consulted or advised about any of this is absolutely rude, first of all. And I do believe that the owners were aware of all of this. Also, in addition, I have reviewed this with other members of our committee, and we have a list about 3 pages long of questions. So obviously tonight is not the night that those are going to get answered, but I do want the constituents of our neighborhood to understand that there's a lot of serious issues. They're 6 feet behind various buildings. How is the construction going to happen? How are fire trucks going to get in? What kind of things is the developer going to do, the architecture, in order to compensate for major issues like that? And it goes on and on. How is delivery going to happen for the commercial space that exists now? I don't see any access for that, any loading zones, any doors even wide enough to accommodate that. Right now, Ungers, if they are going to stay in business, and I'm assuming that ultimately they will not, but if they were, they couldn't get any of their goods into the building at this point. And so we have a lot of questions. The whole idea of what's been going on in the city with the discussions about making this a livable city, doors need to be recessed so that there's some kind of lobby entrance or something to make sure that it's not dangerous for people to be coming in and out of the space. And then any access to the back apartments or anything like that, it's going to be like 6 feet wide. We've taken pictures of all of this. We have complete documentation. And if any of you folks are interested in seeing any of this, we'd be happy to share it with you, host a meeting, and review what our plans are and how these projects contradict what we have spent hours and hours and hours studying. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona.
I mean, that makes sense to get the questions and your thoughts.
Yeah, so on that, two things. One, I guess, Ben, would you be able to send along that list of abutters, and we can just make sure that folks are getting the minutes from tonight's meeting in these sets and everybody's aware of it.
And I just put my email in the chat. And if you want me to share my screen, I have the abutters list up also.
I think for the sake of time, we can just attach it to the minutes when we send that out. I'm happy to do that. Because I know we have another project to go to. And then, similar to what we saw with our Fair Street property is maybe a special community meeting would be a good idea to spend some time just digesting any of these smaller and more minute questions that actually really impact individual neighbors when you get when that seems appropriate. I'm happy to take the lead from the neighbors directly impacted on when you would want something like that, and then of course folks would have to be available to come to that. So a quick and final question on this before we move over to 880, pending anybody else's hands going up, in which case I'm happy to take them. Kevin McCarthy sends me a question. There's a building on a block from the site that received zoning approval a couple of years ago for an apartment building. Construction started, stopped, restarted, but appears to be moribund. Not related to your proposal, but maybe of interest. Do you think that the experience of that building is relevant to the prospects of these proposals? It is not relevant to the zoning application. I think basically it's...
I'm not sure which building he's referring to.
I'm not sure either, but I've asked the question.
Can I try answering?
There you go.
So it's on the same side of Grand Ave. It's about a block or two further out, I believe. It is right on the sidewalk. It's 2 or 3 stories, and it's again not a zoning issue because the cases are decided individually. But someone tried to build apartments not too far from there, and it didn't work. And it'd be interesting to figure out why not.
The classic answer is they ran out of money, but
I'm shocked.
I can't even picture in my mind what building it is, but I'll go down the street tonight and take a look.
Thanks.
I have one last question, please.
It's Mona. Go ahead, Mona.
Thank you. Actually, it's a statement. I'm kind of curious how all of this can be going on while, if I'm not mistaken, there's been, or let me phrase it as a question then. Have there been any fines, litigations, or problems with this developer in this area?
Whatever issues there may have been with the owner or prior owner don't in any way impact the current owner's ability to request zoning relief or to file an application with the City Plan Commission for special permit or site plan approval. I believe there was litigation, but that's not part of my, I'm not handling that litigation. I don't know the substance of it. And it's, posture in court currently.
May I ask Arthur to look into that, because I believe that it was LCI that had filed some complaints and asked for some work to be done. And there were a lot of fines, as I had understood it, that had piled up. And I'm kind of wondering where that all came from. Where is that litigation over? Because I understand that the former owner, who I thought had something to do with the present owner, I'm sorry, had a fairly large amount of outstanding fines in the hundreds of thousands.
I could follow up on that matter.
Thank you.
Thanks, Arthur. Art or Arthur? Let's clear this up.
Arthur.
Thank you, Arthur. Good to know. Thanks, Mona. That's an interesting question. If there's any liens on the building, I think I'll reduce it to that. That seems like the right question there. Linda Reeder asks in the chat, when did the current owner, Aktov LLC, purchase the property?
I'm not sure. Let me see if I can find you an answer.
City Square 2. Okay. Well, all right, I'll give them a second for that. Anybody else? Last questions? We have another development across the street. We're still going to hear. All right. Mr. Tracton, while you're pulling that question up,
I'm sorry, the last sale date was 8/24 of 2020.
That was for the 897. I'm asking about the 873.
873. Last sale date listed is 2013, but I believe the ownership of the entity changed. So
I thought
wasn't
it was
sale
the
of the
same
property.
owner.
I'm sorry?
I thought when I had looked it up previously that it was the same owner. That's why I was asking.
Right, I think the entity that owns the property is the same, but the beneficial ownership in the company has changed. So it's not the same guy you remember from,
But it
7
is the
years
same.
ago.
It is the same company that has owned that building all along, though,
It's the same kind of hollow shell of a name that has.
which is a
owned just-
company, an LLC. The C is for company, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that this raises an interesting point and something that I think we do need a place in our city to have a conversation about what is grand visions and what are long plans and what's the 20-year, 10-year, 20-year, 30-year, 40-year, 50-year vision for a neighborhood. I think, if we might need to convene, and I'd be happy to host one through the management team, like a special meeting just for our neighborhood that is not about individual developments, but about what we want to see as a community. Anybody has any ideas on that, feel free to send them over via email. But I do think that what we're seeing here is I think a failure of process where, you guys are coming and you're presenting one project in a tight little package that does not give us the way to talk about how it relates to the humans who live or who work or who use that and who want to grow with our community. And I mean that as I mean that with no commentary on the project that you have, but just that there's a need for more communication, more conversation out there. Sorry, I just let someone open the door.
Ian, just to update you, there have been several studies done in this neighborhood that were sponsored by the city that you would definitely want to include in that kind of a meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's a great point, Mona. I know the city spent a lot of money on a lot of very detailed studies about future planning. Anybody else? Final questions about the north side of Grand Ave. You almost got me saying it. Grand Ave, come on. All right, to the south, 880.
All right, I will share again. Can everybody see that? Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so 880 is much simpler. Essentially, it is taking a one-story building, adding 2 stories onto it. There's sufficient parking behind, essentially creating a retail space in the front, trash area and bike storage, a unit in the back that's on grade, and then you come upstairs and there are 4 units that are 2 stories each. There's a stair within that unit. So you come up the stair, come into this unit. It's got a bedroom, a bathroom, a living room, dining room, kitchen. You come up the stair, and on the next floor, you end up with 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. So they're 3-bedroom units. Just 5 units. And elevations. Grand Avenue elevation, side elevation, rear elevation. Pretty simple.
This currently is an abandoned like church storefront next to upon this rock, and so the right hand side upon this rock will stay, and you're just building on the left hand side of the property.
We're just building on, yes, we're just building on the top of that one structure.
Just a question about how does that impact the other half of the building? It is because they share a wall, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a building, I believe it's its own wall. There's another wall there.
But they're abutted.
Yeah, they're abutted, but they're not, but the structure is on its own wall. And we'll look at the details of that when we make sure that that's clear.
Of course. All right, anybody have any questions about?
I mean, this is not anywhere near as complicated, obviously. And some of the issues that were brought up, I really appreciate. I wasn't aware of on the 873, 897. So I would like to learn more about what the concerns are, but this one's fairly simple. It's put 5 units in the building and hopefully make it a usable building with some retail.
I look forward to a dry cleaner back on Grand Ave. There haven't been one in a while.
That's what the owner talked about, so that's why I put him in there.
Good luck, Dave. Anybody here? Nothing. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty simple. Small units, it looks like.
The 3-bedroom units, actually.
Oh, great. I'm sorry. Oh.
Yeah. You saw this as kind of family units.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. That one was simple.
Could we hear a little bit about what the HVAC plans are and so forth? Also, how you're going to be tying into the septic with additional residential there, and what kind of considerations have been given to any kind of green space that the city has been trying to promote, and public spaces, and also again addressing what Lieutenant Marr had been talking about in regard to security.
Well, I mean, the mechanical and the civil needs to be done. I mean, they would just calculate what's needed to tie into the sewer and storm. You know, that hasn't been worked on yet. There's a civil engineer who will be completing drawings for any city plan submission. So all that detailed information on that would come out at that point. Ben, I haven't seen a site plan on the rear. I know that there's parking. I don't know how much green space there is.
Yeah, I'm not really involved in 880 Grand Avenue, just the other side of the road, so I can't speak definitively on what's there. But my understanding is it would be an as of right build with which would not require any zoning relief. It's in a zone where you have to tie into. It would require separate stormwater and sanitary sewer. So full site plan review at City Plan Commission because of the number of units. And so quite a bit of process remaining on this one, even though I'm not involved.
Thanks for your insight on that. Mona, I saw you go back on mute, so I take that answered your questions. Right before I hand over to you, Astrid, I think I'll remind folks that this is a great time to check the schedule for city plan and BZA hearings. And that's where you get to ask a lot of these really technical questions for people who might know the answers.
Yeah, so just to double check, I didn't miss something. You don't have a site plan that shows the position of the building on its site with the driveway and parking. That isn't available tonight?
No.
Okay.
I'm not even sure who the civil engineer is on this. There was
so
a shift in the civil engineer.
Yeah, so this is very preliminary.
Yes, it's very preliminary.
Yeah. So some things to consider in a very general way. The image that's up right now, or at least that I see, that shows the street with what is that? A Rolls Royce followed by a bus?
Oh yeah, it's a good point.
Right.
Yeah.
It looks like the entrance to the upper apartments would be from the street.
No, they're from the back.
They're from the back.
Yeah, the entrance at the front is the store.
So there's down, yeah, I see.
Here's the entrance to the store.
So there is a door though. Is that a fire exit that's in the, there's the.
Yeah, that's right. That's a fire exit. That's
for the store or only?
No, for the units above.
Above, but it can't be used for entrance or?
Wait a second.
Because I'm asking in part, you can see that way you go into a vestibule, the door opens the right way. And there's a lot to be said about public safety and the activity of the street by bringing people to the street.
No, I'm sorry, that is an entrance. Yeah. That's an entrance for those 2 units.
And
there's an entrance for the back 2 units that's off the back. And this has been sitting for a while, this project.
The shaded things I was wondering about, I can see now it's trash and bike storage.
Right.
That face but it would be good to see what that parking lot is because, we don't have updated zoning. The zoning that was proposed by the city was rejected by the neighborhood, appropriately rejected. And the current zoning is not appropriate either. And there is also not design standards. And on this street that, as you've heard, is so narrow with very narrow sidewalks that don't even accommodate trees. If you study it, it's hot, kind of burned out feeling. Most of the historic buildings that still exist and the ones that were once there created a continuous canopy with awnings. And I think something needs to be looked at here. And it's too bad the city put time into a zoning exercise that was unacceptable. There really does need to be some special design considerations here because of those 2 factors. And if you look at some of the still standing historic buildings, there was always a place that you could anchor an awning, and it could make a big difference in terms of the livability of the street and making it a public place and a good retail and residential place. And I'm also looking at some of the materials that, at least in these preliminaries, you're proposing. The hardy board or clapboard.
Above, yeah.
Yeah, it really doesn't feel appropriate to Grand Avenue, even though what is preferred here for many reasons, particularly for the neighbors on Lion Street, because of the direction of the sun, is to have relatively low buildings, not more than 3 stories tall. It's still such an intensely busy street just with traffic, and as you see the bus routes and all of that, that you need buildings that look like they can stand up to all of this activity, kind of like the vibration of the place. And these seem more like a commercial building you might see in a small town, not on the first part of a major artery just when it leaves downtown. So I'd ask for some reconsideration of that. And some understanding what happens on the other side of your driveway. Establishing the windows there is obviously needed for apartments above, but will it create a condition that limits the usefulness of the next lot to, for instance, get built back up, which, we would hope to see. So, it's undertaking projects in an area that is, the regulations don't fit anything anymore. And and that's one reason it became such a no man's land. But it's an extremely intense environment, and it needs a lot closer attention for just basic street planning and interaction of the buildings in the street, and really making the pedestrian experience a sympathetic and enjoyable one. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that answer. All right. I believe the last question is Andrew Gehring in the chat, saying this is essentially next door to the new Grand Tree Welcome Center at Project Moore, to which I believe he has 2 properties away, but yes, this is about mid-block between Jefferson and Olive. And just to the right of it a little bit more is the Project Moore Center. All right, any final questions or comments for either our architect or our lawyer present? Seeing none, thank you so much for showing up. Thanks for hearing some ideas. And if you are interested in collaborating on another community meeting, I'd be happy to help in any way I can. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. And when the time comes for us to present for site plan at the Crown Street project, would it be appropriate to request a letter of support from the downtown Worcester Square management team, considering there wasn't much opposition?
I think that if you sent that request over, we would kick it around the e-board and bring it up in the next meeting for a vote. And
appreciate it.
Send it back after that. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Absolutely. All right, so now, last but not least, Olivia Martson is back on the queue. She missed us at 7, so thanks for folks who can hang out. You are on mute. You are still on mute.
How about now?
You're not on mute.
Oh, okay, great. Well, I just want to let you know I was glad I was in the meeting, because we're having a lot of design issues and planning issues in Dwight as well. So I just piped in a few little things on there. One thing that we did in Dwight and was we did step up zoning or step down zoning on the Novella building, which for the abutting owners on Lion, they may want to kind of look at. Basically the only reason why that, yeah, can,
Totally appreciate it. I think we're getting really late though. So we want,
okay, all right. So I just, can you pull up the two documents that we have, Ian?
yes, I can. Just 1 second.
Okay, maybe the resolution.
Why don't you explain what you're?
Okay, so what we're doing is we're trying to get every neighborhood a playground and a water feature in every community and every neighborhood, Worcester Square, Dwight, Dixwell, New Hallville. And so we did an analysis of playgrounds and water features, and some of the neighborhoods don't have it. And what we'd like to do is ask the Parks Commission and a resolution from the management team saying that we would like to endorse play space and water features in every neighborhood. This is really important because of the amount of development that's going on in the community. And we would like to just make sure that the neighborhoods have these two elements. And we're asking for a letter of support saying that every neighborhood should have these two features, a playground and a water feature. It doesn't have to be a splash pad. It could be a faucet and a hose and a sprinkler. And, it doesn't have to be fancy, but we think that this is really important for green space and trying to alleviate some of these really hot summers that we're going to continue to have with climate change. Here's a list of all the playgrounds in the city of New Haven. Both Worcester Square and Dwight really don't have much. We don't have really a water feature that's working right now. And Worcester Square has one, but that needs to be hooked up also with the water feature. So we've gotten 2 endorsement letters, one from Westville and one from Fairhaven. And I would love your consideration if you could support us in this. It's really important to get this to the Parks Department. And we're going to meet with the Parks Department, I think, tomorrow. And but if you'd like to take a vote or hands up, and or you could talk about it in executive committee, but we really think this is very important for each neighbor to have these 2 features.
Thanks, Olivia. So we brought this up, and thanks for getting this over to us. We actually had our management team executive board meeting last week. We felt it appropriate to bring to the management team. So we are ready to vote on it now, and then we would send over a letter of support. I will read I guess it's a statement, we can call it a resolution. The Downtown Worcester Square Management Team believes that the Parks Commission of the City of New Haven holds in trust the heritage of the citizens of New Haven to our public parks and playgrounds. Every neighborhood should have a minimum of at least one decent public playground with a playscape and a working splash pad, and a park with mature trees to provide respite from summer heat. We call on the chairperson and members of the Park Commission to adopt a policy to never give up any public park in a neighborhood and to always have at least one playground per neighborhood with a playscape and splash pad or water elements. Do I have a motion to approve a letter of support saying this? Answers?
Yes, I'll make that motion very happily. It's a great idea.
Thank you. Second? Second, Greg, thank you. All right, all those in favor, let's just say aye, because I see a lot of people off mute. So just go ahead and take yourself off mute and just say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Hearing none. I think it passes. All right, we'll send over your letter. Thanks so much for showing up.
Thank you so much.
And keep up the
Really,
good fight for saving your playground.
okay, we're working on it. We haven't won yet, but we're working on it. Thanks.
All right, well, everybody, thank you so much for showing up. It was a long one tonight, but I think a very good meeting and really rich discussion, especially as it relates to the Grand Avenue developments. I will send out the minutes sometime tomorrow, and we'll try to put on that a list of upcoming CPC and BZA meetings, or just links to those sites, actually, because they change pretty quickly. So I'll just link out to those sites. I see, sorry, I just saw Miriam in the chat. Sorry. No, so, but I think we still passed, so that's good. All right. Have a good night, everybody. This meeting's over. Oh, it was about the pool. Okay, great. Thanks. Bye. Still unanimous then.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.